Hello motherfuckers, welcome back to my motherfucking channel. Okay, so today we're going to be ranking Janet Jackson's. Oh, this is the end of the Janet era. Well, I have one more video coming out on Monday. Ending off my Janet Jackson era. I'm going to be reading a few comments, so if you have something to say, now is the time. Okay. Last week I gave you my top 20 Janet Jackson songs, and it was controversial a little bit. And in that video, there was like some footage that was missing for whatever reason. I don't know what happened with that video, but it still came together, and overall you could see my top 20. So that's cute. But if you didn't know, I've been in my Janet Jackson era for the past month or so. I have reacted to every single Janet Jackson album that is out there. There is questions about Dream Street. Where is the Dream Street reaction? I reacted to Dream Street. I remember reacting to Dream Street, and I remember because it was a lot better than the debut for me. I don't know what happened to the video. I don't know why it's not in my playlist. I will find it though. I will find it, and when I upload reacting to every single Janet Jackson album in order compilation, it should be in there. So look out for that soon. So since I've reacted to every single album, I feel it at the end of every era with my artist, I like to rank their albums with these 5 categories, okay? Starting off with skip, okay? This album is just a skip. We're not gonna listen to it. It's just like, whatever, you know? The next being okay. This album is okay. It's not, it's just okay, you know? The next category is good. This album is good. We can listen to it. It's just not our favorite, okay? The next category is great. This album was great. It moved people, okay? It was great. And the next and final category is ultimate gag. One of the best albums of all time, could be considered, in my humble opinion. So let's get into this. This would also be controversial, I'm not gonna lie. But I would like to know what your favorite Janet Jackson album is of all time, okay? But also, what is your top 3 favorite Janet Jackson albums? I will give that at the end of this video. So let's friggin' go, bro. But before I start, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to build a little community here. We're gonna be moving on to our next artist very soon here. And this era has been so bittersweet because it's been so short, because I started Janet way back then. But I'm glad we got it done. So let's get into this. Okay, let's start with the debut. The debut album for me, it didn't move me at all, okay? And me being the person that I am, trying to find these hidden gems in these artist catalogs, okay, I still wanted to keep going, so that didn't change it anything for me. I know Janet Jackson is an iconic artist, but the debut did not change, like, move me at all. And I'm gonna have to put it in the skip category. I'm sorry, and you know what, I'm just gonna say it now, that's the only skip on this list, okay? Like, I just could not get into it. It just wasn't for me. And even in my top 20 favorite songs, there was no songs from this album. I don't know, it's just not for me, you know? It just wasn't a great debut. Okay, the next album is Dream Street. Okay, see, this is weird because nobody can find the video, but I remember reacting to it, okay? And I'm gonna put this in the okay category just because I remember reacting to it and it being better than the debut, okay? The debut was, oh my gosh, I don't wanna get dragged, okay? The debut just wasn't for me, personally. But Dream Street was so much better but at the same time, I feel like it could have been better. It really could have. I've seen what she was going for, but for me, it just didn't land personally. It's just personal, you know? But if these two albums, her debut and Dream Street, are your favorite, let me know. I want to know, and I want to know why. Okay? For me, I think it was just too early. I don't really vibe with music from the 80s. You know, it just wasn't my type of sound, okay? But I still think if you think it's a good album, go off, you know? I respect opinions over here, okay? Okay, the next album is Control, okay? This is where it picked up for me. Personally, with Janet Jackson, I was like, okay, wait a second, like, I could really get into her, like, this is cute. And I'm gonna put this album in the good category, just for the simple fact that it did help me move forward a little bit, but it still had that 80s sound that I just wasn't vibing with. But this album contains my favorite Janet Jackson song, which is Funny How Time Flies. So it says a lot. It's very contradictive. You know, it's just weird. But that's also why I put it in the good category, because it is a good album. It's just not great. Okay, for me personally. But I love the album cover. I really do. This is one of her best album covers. One of the best album covers of all time. It's really solid, okay? And I think it deserves the good category, okay? Don't hate me, please. I just realized that I've been doing this whole video without my light on, so I hope we're all good, okay? Okay, the next album is Rhythm Nation, okay? This is going to be the first ultimate gag on this list of albums. I was really hesitant about putting it in the ultimate gag category. I wanted to put it in the great category because it is a great album and it was like moving for a culture of people, you know, so I had to put it in the ultimate gag category. But once again, this was just not one of my favorite albums, especially by Janet. It had a lot of that Jack swing, okay, and I'm not a huge fan of the Jack swing, and none of the songs from the album made it into my top 20, but I see the album and realize the album is iconic, okay? So that's why I'm putting it in the ultimate gag category. I want to know what you think about this album. I know this album shifted a lot, okay? So I just want to know your guys' thoughts on Rhythm Nation. She did eat, for sure. We love when people can come together and make something that is like that, you know, culture shocking, shifting. We love it. And the dances from that whole era were iconic, to say the absolute least. And that's where my thing comes from, is Janet Jackson is the best performer when it comes to females, at least, because her brother is right there, okay? He's right there. So it's like, there's a lot to it why Rhythm Nation is in my ultimate gag category. Okay, the next album is her self-titled Janet album, Girlfriend. This album is an ultimate gag. I think this album is one of the most perfect albums of all time, from absolute start to absolute finish. It is a good album, but it's ultimate gag, okay? Because of the timelessness of it all. She really changed the whole sound of what she was trying to do with her career, and I love that. I love when artists go different routes with different albums and have it fit in different time eras, because I feel like this was a perfect 90s album. It really was. 1993, the very early 90s, okay? I think she mothered it, okay? And like, to look back on it, I think that it really is a solid moment in time, especially for Janet's career. One of the most replayable R&B albums of all time, for absolute sure. There's some gaggeries on this album, and a few songs made it into my top 20 list. So I really do think that album, it's iconic. To me personally, it's iconic, and this is where I really became set in stone into finishing Janet Jackson's career. The next album is The Velvet Rope. Okay, she had something going on in the 90s, okay, because I'm putting this album in the ultimate gag category. This album really was that, okay? Now, when it came to Janet, great music, great iconic R&B, but also mixed with like some dance tunes, you know? But the Velvet Rope was like mostly R&B, and it really felt like that kind of R&B that it's timeless. It's a timeless fucking album from, once again, absolute start to absolute finish. It was one of my favorite albums, and this was the end of the 90s, 97 to be exact, and I just feel like it fit so perfectly in that little era of music, okay? Janet really, she shined right there, okay? And the album cover itself is also an absolute gag. So yeah, I think that this album is iconic. I want to know your guys' thoughts on each of these albums, okay? So let me know. Okay, now the next album is All For You. Okay, immediately I'm just gonna say it right now. This is the ultimate gag. The ultimate gag. This deserves to be in the ultimate gag for so many reasons. From Rhythm Nation to the Janet to the Velvet Rope. She changed every single era when it came to just the way the music sounded. And the 2000s for me, I love the music in the 2000s, okay? It's just me personally. I don't know what it is. I just love it so much, and I feel like this album really captured what the 2000s sounded like. And for her to be a black artist, a black woman in the industry making music like that, having it be so timeless, for me personally as a gay black man, I'm obsessed. To this day I am obsessed. It sounds so perfectly 2000s, you know? The whole album is just full of bops, okay? Bops after bops after bops after bops, but it also has that integralness to it, you know? It's a solid feel-good album. So I definitely think that this belongs in the ultimate gag category. This is one of her best albums, not just because of the sound, not just because whatever, my thoughts, my opinions, it's the growth for me, okay? For her to be able to stick out in different eras of music, it's good. It's good, okay? When you had artists like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and, you know, just these hyper pop sounds, I think Janet's album really stuck out because it was different, but it sounded like the 2000s, okay? Okay, now the next album is Damita Joe from 2004, okay? This, and you know, when I went to go react to this album, I had no idea. Somebody told me that this was scraps from the All For You album. Now, me being the biggest stan of All For You for all time, of course I love this album, I really do. And I'm gonna put this album in the great category just because a lot of people pointed it out that it was scraps, okay? But I still think that it was a solid album. I just feel like it was lazy, you know, just a whole new album and it's just scraps. But even though it was just scraps, it's still such a solid album. The interludes, the sound of the album, it was in 2004, you know, it fit in that era for sure. And there were some absolute bangers on this album, okay, like truly. And this was the first album I came back to my Janet era, so there was a lot riding here. Like, am I gonna love this? Am I gonna hate it? And I absolutely loved it, and it just made me want to go even harder for Janet, okay? So I think that this is a standout album personally. It's all about time. That album came out 20 years ago, okay? How well did it age? And I think it aged well. A lot of these albums definitely aged well. The only two that I would say is her first two albums. They just didn't, it just wasn't for me. But I don't want to hear any more talk about Damita Joe unless it's positive, okay? I think it's a good album. I really do think it's a good album. Okay, now the next album is 20 years old. I'm gonna put this in the great category. This album is a great album. It's a great album. I just don't think it's the ultimate gag of an album, unfortunately. It was a 20-year celebration of her career. You know, and I said it in the video, I feel like some people probably wanted more from it, you know, not just a fun album, which it is fun, and that's why I'm putting it in the great category, because it is a fun album, it's a solid album, but I personally kind of wanted a little bit more. But you know, give and take, you know, it was still a gag, it really was. And I really think that's really the only reason why it's not in the ultimate gag category, is because people were expecting something different. I was expecting something different, but I still had a lot of fun filming and even editing that video. So you know, and once again, it's all about time. How well did it age? And it aged, in my opinion, pretty good. It felt like the mid-2000s when listening to that album, and I love that. I love when an album takes you somewhere, okay? You know? Okay, now the next album is Discipline. Now, there's a controversy going on with me and Discipline, okay? I love Discipline, first of all, let me just say that. But when it came to me reacting to this, for some reason on Apple Music, I'm going to show you guys right now because I feel like people don't believe me. This was the last album in her catalog on Apple Music, so I was like, okay. It said 2023, I think, or something like that. And I was like, okay, so this is the last album. Okay, so I'm going to save it for last to go off. But no, this album came out in the late 2000s, 2009, 2008 maybe. And it didn't feel like it at all. It felt like 90s, it felt like current music, but it also felt like 2000s at the same time. It felt like all this stuff mixed together, and I'm gonna put this album in the ultimate gag category because this album right here might be Janet Jackson's best album for me personally. And you know, I was so surprised reading the comments. People were saying that this album, people didn't really enjoy this album, but once again, it aged perfectly. It sounds so good now. Even if it didn't sound good at the moment, it sounds really good now, okay? From start to finish, this album is great. The interludes all throughout the album, it just puts you in a vibe, it puts you in an atmosphere, and it keeps you there. And I love that. I love when albums put you somewhere and keep you there and until the album's over, okay? And it keeps you wanting to go back for more and more. Absolutely gagged by that album still to this day. Like, I don't see any of the outcry for this album. I don't understand why people didn't like it. Once again, maybe it was, you know, not good in the moment. You know, 2009, it sounded ahead of its time, and I think that a few albums from her sounded ahead of their time, and this is being one of them, okay? Because I really thought that this album came out in 2023, and if it did, it would have been an absolute banger of an album, okay? But the fact that it came out in 2009 surprised me, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, now the last album is Unbreakable. I'm going to put this in the good category. Now, this is controversial. Just because I know a lot of people really love this album. It was years since she dropped an album. Probably the longest time she went from not dropping an album. You know, and the thing is, I like the album. Listening to the album, I like the album. And that's why it's in the good category. If it wasn't a good album, I would put it in the okay or skip category. But I think that this was a solid album. I expected just a little bit more for the last album. And that's why I was so gung-ho with Discipline. I really thought that was the last album. I do think it shows a lot of growth, okay? And it's really, there's moments where it's really sad, okay? But that's the growth, and it's like therapeutic for her, okay, in a way. So I do respect the album. This album is really close to going into the great category, but I just think that it is perfect in the good category, you know? There's just some things here and there that just, you know, they weren't fixing for me, okay? Don't be mad at me. Okay, so here's the full ranking list. of my Janet vibes, what I feel are her best albums to, you know, not her best days. Okay. I want to know your guys' thoughts. I want to know your ranking of the albums. Okay, and now I want to tell you guys my top 3 albums, and I want to know your guys' top 3 albums, so let me know. My top 3 albums from Janet Jackson are All For You, Discipline, and the Janet album. See, these albums all came out during different eras. That's what I'm saying. She is that kind of person that can adjust to certain eras of music. And I think that these 3 albums right here really solidify what Janet Jackson is to the music industry when it comes to having fun, when it comes to the dance sounds, when it comes to even the jack swing of it all, you know, and the R&B-ish of everything, and the interludes. She does them right. She knows how to do it. She knows how to make a gag, okay? And I think that those top 3 are a very solid top 3. But I want to know your guys' top 3 and why. Why are they your guys' top 3? But I guess that's it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Come back next week, because we are going to be ending off the Janet Jackson era. Like I said, I will be reading a few comments and just giving my overall thoughts on Janet Jackson, and where her career took us as a culture, okay? But I guess that's it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let me know your top 3, and bye, motherfuckers.